Well, the rumors were right, folks. Konami and Bloober Team just announced the remake of Silent Hill 1, and I am so pumped to see and find out more. Silent Hill 1 was my very first Silent Hill game and is probably the Silent Hill game I wanted remade the most, even over Silent Hill 2, and the one that probably needs it the most since the game is quite dated. I can't wait to see what Bloober Team does with this remake. There is so much they could do with expanding upon it and bringing in some new additions to the gameplay, puzzles, story, and characters. Here is my list of the top 8 things I'd like to see Bloober Team include in the Silent Hill 1 remake. Number 1. Cybil as a second main playable character, exploring her story and perspective from the play novel. One of the best characters from the first game is police officer Cybil Bennett, who meets up with main character Harry Mason, assisting and helping him in his journey to find his missing daughter Cheryl. She is sent to Silent Hill from the neighboring town of Brahms to investigate and finds herself trapped in the town as well. Her character plays a huge role later on in the game, and your choice of whether you choose to save her or not determines which ending you get. Cybil was also featured in a game that was released exclusively in Japan for the Game Boy Advance, called the Silent Hill Play Novel, which allowed you to play the whole game from her perspective, and it helped to further flesh out her story and character quite a bit. Having an option to play the whole game from Cybil's perspective, a la Resident Evil 2, with its own branching narrative and path that could affect Harry's playthrough and influence his ending, like Resident Evil 2, would be pretty cool as well. Likewise, having an option to play as Harry first, and then Harry could also have an influence on Cybil's endings and playthrough, which would allow for a lot more replayability as well. I would love to see them further flesh out Cybil's character a lot more, expanding upon her scenario from the play novel, and finally allowing us to play the whole game from her perspective, which would be absolutely amazing. Bloober has an incredible opportunity to further flesh out and create a scary second playable scenario to experience the game in a unique new way, one that's more psychological and different compared to Harry. Like Resident Evil 7 did with Mia's playable story of being infected by Evelyn and the mold, they could go into her ordeal and struggling with hallucinations from the parasitic infection, trying to stop the parasite from taking over her and having to fight off the effects of the parasite. It could make for a far more psychological and personal horror experience for her compared to Harry, which would be really great to experience. Number 2. Incorporating Masahiro Ito's Cage of Cradle for Lisa as DLC or an unlockable campaign after the main game. One of the most memorable and tragic characters in Silent Hill 1 is undoubtedly Lisa Garland, the nurse you meet throughout the game who is trapped in Alchemilla Hospital. Her appearance in the game, as well as her story and her eventual fate, is highly regarded as one of the most horrifying and heartbreaking scenes in the entire game. You find out a little more about her backstory in the game, her drug addiction, and being forced by Dr. Michael Kaufman and the Order to look after and care for Alessa Gillespie throughout the game. However, in 2006, Masahiro Ito and Hiroyuki Iwaku, 2 members of Team Silent, created Cage of Cradle, a comic released by Konami that further fleshed out and explored Lisa Garland, as well as her relationship with Alessa Gillespie and the cult. The comic was a prequel that introduced us to Matthew, Lisa's boyfriend, and takes place right before the events at the beginning of Silent Hill 1. Matt tries to save Lisa from the Order, but as a result of Cheryl Mason's influence on Alessa as she enters the town, Matthew is also transported to the Otherworld and caught up in the events. The comic not only fleshes out the strained relationship between Lisa and Alessa, but also how the effects of the drug, Michael Kaufman, and the Order's influence have had on Lisa. And it also answers some lingering questions about how Lisa got trapped in the town, her fate, and the restless spirit of her we see in Silent Hill 1 as Harry. I would love for Bloober to bring the story and events from Cage of Cradle to life as a playable DLC or an unlockable prequel story similar to Born from a Wish that unlocks after you complete the main game. We could play this Cage of Cradle DLC or short story prequel after the game to further flesh out the backstory of Lisa, where we play as either her or her boyfriend Matthew, and would allow us to possibly see and experience the birth and creation of Valtiel, which would be a nice tie-in into Silent Hill 3 as well. Playing Playing as Lisa or her boyfriend could also allow us to experience hallucinations and effects from the PTV drug that the Order supplied to Lisa. We could also experience her trauma leading up to the events behind her tragic fate, and also see what it would be like trapped in this other world as a tragic spirit confined to this hellish town. This short comic was only released digitally on cell phones in Japan, and has since been discontinued, so it would be a real shame to see this prequel and story be forgotten, when Bloober could simply incorporate it into the remake in some way as a playable prequel DLC or side story that unlocks after the main game, especially since Masahiro Ito himself confirms the comic as being canon to the main game as well. It would also clear up the misconception most people have of the Lisa that we see in Silent Hill 1 just being Alessa's manifestation of Lisa, which according to Masahiro Ito seems not to be the case, but is actually her ghost or spirit trapped there that is unaware of her own death instead. I honestly just have one plea though for Konami and Bloober Team. Please, for the love of God, do not make Lisa like how she was portrayed in Origins. As much as I enjoyed most of Silent Hill Origins, I absolutely hated how they butchered and characterized Lisa in that game. Number 3. Using uncensored original designs and cut content. During the development of Silent Hill 1, some of the enemies such as the Grey Children and the Larval Stalker were redesigned from the original beta versions by Team Silent in order to avoid certain restrictions and censors at the time. In the beta version, the Grey Child looked and resembled human-like monsters with beady eyes and human-like skin, while the Larval Stalkers initially also resembled infant-like children. They were also heavily redesigned in order to avoid looking like children and having the player being able to kill them. The final version of them we see in the game are simply shadow-like transparent ghost babies that don't actually attack Harry and can't be killed. They just simply walk by or through him as if they are simply ghosts or shadows. While I found the Larval Stalkers creepy in their ghost-like baby form wandering around, I would prefer for the remake to have them be able to attack the player and us having to avoid them instead. If they don't want to have us be able to attack them since they are ghost babies, then maybe they could have them be able to attack Harry if he makes noise or has his flashlight on, which would make them even more creepy and threatening, and would also up the tension by forcing us to have to walk through the hallway in the dark or not being able to run in the halls to avoid making too much noise. I also think having the Grey Children resemble their earlier beta version, like a pale, sickly, creepy Grey Child with beady small eyes and holding knives or blades, would be a lot scarier and way more intense as well. There was also 7 monsters that were cut and unused in the original game as well, although these resembled animals more so than monsters, such as a chicken, snake, frog, ostrich, manta ray, and monkey. Still, having Masahiro redesign them to make them way more terrifying and including them in the game as new enemies would be pretty cool as well. Number 4. First-person and third-person camera options and an unlockable fixed camera. After the success of Bloober's Silent Hill 2 remake, we all know that this remake will likely feature a third-person over-the-shoulder perspective like the Silent Hill 2 remake. Fans, though, will never forget the eerie opening scene when you guide Harry down the twisting back alley, and the way Team Silent used the brilliant camera angles to follow the player down that alley to find the dead body as the world transitions to the rusty dark Otherworld for the first time. It was terrifying, and one of the most creative ways of using fixed camera angles back then. It would be really nice if the remake included not just the usual third-person over-the-shoulder camera, but also giving us the option for fixed camera angles as well, at least for the scene at the beginning of the game. Bloober has used fixed camera angles before with their highly underrated Medium game, so they are no stranger to it, and I honestly think having the option would be great for the OG fans who enjoyed it. That being said, since this is also a brand new remake of an old classic, I would also love to see a first-person mode as well, with optional VR support like Resident Evil 7, Resident Evil 8, and the Resident Evil 4 remake, to further enhance the horror and create an even more intense and immersive sense of dread and terror. While I do love playing third-person games just as much as first-person, I do honestly find horror games far more scarier in first-person, and Resident Evil 7 showed us just how much more intense and scary it can be using the first-person perspective instead of just a traditional third-person view. Like the upcoming Resident Evil 9, having both options to play the game in either first person or third person would really increase the atmosphere and terror and would be absolutely horrifying to experience. Just imagine seeing the rusty Otherworld and the creatures up close, having an air screamer swoop down in front of your face, grabbing you and screeching and clawing at your face in first person would be really intense and scary. Plus, having an optional first person mode would make it far more easier for Bloober and Flat2VR Studios to eventually give us VR support and make a potential VR mode for it somewhere down the line as well. Number 5. Making Silent Hill more explorable with optional side quests to expand upon the town. While it is a topic of debate among Silent Hill fans, one of the things I personally enjoyed the most about the Silent Hill 2 remake was being able to explore the town and buildings a lot more. Instead of just going from point A to point B, you could take your time in the game exploring certain areas and places that weren't really explorable in the original game. I really appreciated how Bloober expanded upon the town in this way. I'm sure some might have felt like it added a bit too much padding to the game, but if it's optional and has some interesting side quests and lore that you can find out about the town and some of the town people, then why not let those who wish to explore the town explore it? Back when the first game came out on the original PlayStation 1, I can remember getting lost in the game due to not just the fog, but how big the streets and areas really were. I would try to explore everywhere, but every place either had broken doorknobs or they were locked. One of the only good things I really enjoyed about Silent Hill Downpour was the well thought out and creative side quests they included when you were able to freely explore the town. These side quests were really fun and different, each having their own story and lore that expanded upon some of the residents, their families, and their experiences of living in Silent Hill. Being able to freely explore certain areas and investigate previously closed off places to pick up optional side quests to find out more about the town, the Order, and the residents of Silent Hill would be a really fun way to further flesh out some of the characters and backstory of the town and the cult, if you choose to, and will make the town a lot bigger and feel way more alive. Number 6. Seeing more of the Masons and expanding upon Alessa, the Order, and other characters like Claudia. The opening of Silent Hill 1 takes you right into the action, with Harry Mason crashing and having to explore Silent Hill to find his daughter Cheryl. Throughout the game we get little tidbits about Harry Mason, his dead wife Jody, and the relationship with Cheryl, the baby that they found and adopted on the side of the road on the edge of the town. But we really don't get to see much about their home life, how Harry struggled with Jody's death, and seeing how his relationship with Cheryl is like. The first Silent Hill film at least gave us some time with Rose's family, with her and her husband, and showed us the relationship with her daughter Sharon, aka Cheryl. I would absolutely love for them to have a playable prologue like The Last of Us, where we actually get to spend some time with the Mason family, playing as either Harry or Cheryl, and seeing more of their home life before they come to Silent Hill. Maybe they could have us playing as Cheryl, waking up and having some nightmares of Silent Hill and experiencing some visions or hallucinations of Alessa calling her to Silent Hill, which would then prompt her to beg her father to take her there. It would be really nice to further explore and flesh out Harry, Cheryl, and their family, especially since we know their relationship plays a huge role in Silent Hill 3. This would make the events of Heather in Silent Hill 3 even more impactful and meaningful to us, especially if we explore and spend some time with Cheryl and Harry to flesh out their relationship in the Silent Hill 1 remake. I would also love to see Bloober Team further flesh out and explore Alessa, the Order, and maybe even having playable flashbacks of Alessa as well, maybe experiencing some of the abuse and tragic events she experienced that we only see brief glimpses of or read about in the original game. We could see more of Alessa's life growing up in the town of Silent Hill and her relationship with Claudia, introducing us to Claudia and showing us how close they were before the events of Silent Hill 1 and especially Silent Hill 3 when Claudia makes her big return. This would make the game a lot more impactful, especially if Bloober Team is developing the Silent Hill remake back-to-back with the Silent Hill 3 remake. Number 7, a more terrifying Otherworld with real-time Otherworld transitionings happening when the siren goes off. The thing I am probably looking forward to the most with this upcoming remake has to be seeing a new fully remade version of the rusty and bloody Otherworld in Silent Hill 1. The Otherworld in Silent Hill 1 and Silent Hill 3 were probably my favorites due to just how scary and intense they were, with the bleeding, rusty, and grotesque walls, especially during Alchemilla Hospital. The more hellish, bloody, and visceral Otherworld seen in Silent Hill 1 and 3 were the ones that really traumatized me the most growing up, and I can't wait to see them remade and reimagined in a whole new terrifying way, with new environmental effects and graphics thanks to the Unreal 5 engine. The way Bloober was able to create a new terrifying version of the Otherworld in Silent Hill 2 Remake, with whole new enemy AI that really kept players on their toes, was great, and I really want to see them go crazy here with creating a way more twisted, scarier, and bloodier Otherworld with bleeding walls and pulsating flesh and pus. The thing I'd love to see the most, though, is real-time transitions that can happen anytime during the game, similar to the way the Otherworld and weather worked in Silent Hill Downpour. If there's one thing I actually enjoyed in the Western Silent Hill games, it was the real-time Otherworld transitions. In Downpour, they actually had a time or weather system that would change into the Otherworld the longer you explored the town, which I thought was actually a pretty cool idea, but it was horribly executed. Being able to have real-time transitions occur anytime throughout the game when the siren goes off would make the game feel that much more real, scarier, and way more intense, and would also allow us to see Otherworld versions of most of the areas in the game, especially if we take our time and explore. Now, I'm not saying they should throw hordes of non-stop enemies at you when it happens like they did in Downpour, because that would definitely get annoying and would use up a lot of resources. But being able to freely explore around the town and having the siren go off with the Otherworld taking over and changing the town in real time with few monsters roaming around would be really terrifying and make the game that much more intense and atmospheric. It would also allow us to fully explore places and areas in certain buildings and around the town that could be locked off or blocked in the foggy world, but could be unlocked and explorable in the Otherworld instead, giving us new items, side quests, or certain puzzles that we would need to complete there. They could even have certain puzzles that you could only complete in the Otherworld, but couldn't complete in the foggy world, so you'd actually have to come back again once everything transitioned into the Otherworld. It would allow us to have a little more freedom, and would allow them to use the transitions to further enhance the gameplay and puzzles, with it switching periodically from the foggy world to the Otherworld. Bloober could even take this a step further as we get closer to the end of the game, with the Otherworld transitions becoming more frequent or more terrifying, bloodier, and more twisted as time goes on, which would make it even scarier and would really keep us on our toes. Number 8. New endings. With the Silent Hill 2 remake, Bloober Team was able to bring us 2 new endings to the game, which were fantastic additions that further fleshed out the characters and the game. In fact, I'd have to say the Stillness ending has probably become my all-time favorite Silent Hill 2 ending. I would love to see Bloober give us a few new endings in the Silent Hill 1 remake as well, or perhaps even further expanding upon the events in the good endings, with maybe even having a playable epilogue that would tie and lead into the events of Silent Hill 3, since Silent Hill 3 is a direct continuation of the story and characters. We could see what happens when Harry leaves the town with the new baby, and him creating a new life, raising her, and being on the run from the Order. If Bloober fleshes out Alessa a little more and shows us more of her past and her relationship with Claudia, we could even see a young Claudia at the end of the game, vowing revenge on Harry and showing us how she becomes determined to take over Dahlia's mission, leading her to become who she is in Silent Hill 3. This would make Silent Hill 3 even more satisfying when we see Claudia come back again and see this time how much she's changed and grown, instead of her just being a previously unknown new antagonist like in the original Silent Hill 3 game. I'm sure Bloober would do a great job with having some interesting new endings to expand upon the town, the lore, the Order, and the fate of the characters. Or they could even just expand upon and further flesh out the good endings from the original to tie up loose ends and set up the story and characters for the eventual Silent Hill 3 remake, especially if they're creating them both back to back or are working on them at the same time. Well, this is my list of the top 8 features that I'd like to see for the upcoming Silent Hill 1 remake. What do you guys think? Do you agree with some of my picks or disagree? Or do you have any exciting features or ideas of your own that you'd like to see them either add in, remove, or expand upon in the remake? If so, please let me know in the comments below. After seeing the Silent Hill remake trailer, I just couldn't help but share my excitement for this game and coming up with this list. I hope you all enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I'll see you all next time.